Accessing.
When TV and radio collide.
Love it.
Wow. This is what you get. You're listening to JJ and Alex.
Don't touch that dial.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Utah fans hoping for some satisfaction Wednesday in Vegas. The Utes take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers in the Las Vegas Bowl. 1:30 p.m. kickoff. We've got you covered here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, pre- and post-game shows. The actual game right here on the air. So this is the last show of 2025 for JJ and Alex. Tomorrow you will be able to hear the Utes and Cornhuskers right here on the KSL Sports Zone. And it's a perfect time for us to talk to our Utah insider, Steve Bartle. A lot going on with the Utes. Utah football is the cut at 5 o'clock.
Covering the Utes better than anyone else. This is Ute insider Steve Bartle of KSLSports.com on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The cut's brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Give them a call today, your local financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. Coming to us live from Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas, baby. It's Steve Bartle on JJ and Alex. Steve, how's Vegas treating you?
Man, it's treating me pretty good, JJ. It's been a good time down here.
Awesome.
So, Steve, what's on the must-eat list while you're down there?
The must-eat list?
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know. Whatever pulls up the best rating around it. I don't know.
I might recommend. Have you been to Din Tai Fung? Have you been to Din Tai Fung?
Oh
like
yeah,
I have.
Kendra loves Din Tai Fung.
Yeah.
Delightful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
We could turn this into a food show
I know.
if you're not careful.
I'm just saying.
I got Vegas spots too.
Because Vegas has got everything. But
Yes, they do.
Wonder if Steve had a certain spot he's gonna hit. Hey, Steve, give us your vibe coming out of the. It was like a lunch/press conference today with both teams down there in Vegas. Just give us the vibe of how you feel about Utah as they head into this game tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting opportunity. It was a media availability, the press conference for the bowl game, and we had the opportunity to hear from Morgan Scalley, Devin Dampier, and Lander Barton from Utah side, and then also Matt Rule and a couple of their players as well. And with Morgan getting a first look at him, it was it was interesting to hear what he had to say, and it was sort of a refreshing experience listening to Morgan talk about the game. And you've just become so accustomed to how Kyle Whittingham responds to things. You could almost like have quotes almost typed up before he said it, and then obviously as he's saying it, you're correcting yourself, but you almost have these templates of responses from Kyle Whittingham. And so to hear from Scally today, it was just kind of refreshing in a lot of ways. And so he's talked about needing to set the culture and needing to send these seniors out on a high note and finish the season on the high note. And that was echoed by both Dev and Lander, that they have a goal to finish the season on a win. And so I think that's the mindset of the team as they prepare for the bowl game tomorrow. But it's been interesting. There's been a lot of talk about a new energy with Morgan Scalley at the helm, that's going to be something that we see. And so, there certainly seems to be a pretty upbeat vibe around the team right now.
Well, that's refreshing because, we all know where bowl games are at right now in 2025, 2026. They're not what they used to be. And the guys are sitting out, guys are going to league or whatever. And we remember what happened in Vegas 2 years ago. That was a colossal waste of time. It sucked, right? Do you get the vibe that this team is wanting to be there? They want to play in this game. They want to win this game. Do you expect Utah to bring their best on Wednesday?
I mean, define best, right, in this type of game. Obviously I think we know what bowl games are, and I think that's just going to have, an impact on how teams play. Yeah. This is not going to be their best performance of the season where they come out and are sharp and playing at a really intense level. I don't think it's going to be that type of game, but I do think the guys and the team that they do want to win this game. And so that's going to it's going to come down to, as Morgan Scally said, it's going to come down to who plays the best in the trenches, because that's really, when you talk about the groups that really want to win a game, you gotta really want to win a game when you're talking about the guys in the trenches to put your body through that, for one last time this season. You're just starting to – there's just a lot of, things that you consider. But I think this team is pretty determined to get the win. And there's certainly that type of energy and feel from this squad down here.
You talk about trench play, and we know that, correct me if I'm wrong here, neither of the Fanos are playing, both Logan and Spencer. Caleb Lomu is sitting out as well, as I understand it, Steve, and obviously John Henry Daly, now since he's going into the portal day, he was already out. So just give us a sense of what Utah should look like in the trenches with some of those standout guys along both fronts not playing in this game.
Yeah, there's going to be, some new faces in a couple of key spots for Utah. It's been interesting. I think, most players should be available for this one. I think even Ryan Davis is going to be back and playing, perhaps even Nate Ritchie as well. Utah getting those guys back after pretty significant injuries. But, when talking about how Utah is going to replace, what they've got at those two end spots on both sides of the line, I think we're going to see a guy like Zeroy Williams step up at left tackle. We'll see, one of Keith Olsen or Alex Harrison or Solotoa Moyai or one of those guys at right tackle. And then on the other side, you're probably going to see Lance Holsclaw and Cash Dillon. You're going to see those guys man those edge positions. Outside of that, I think Utah, it's going to be a pretty familiar lineup the rest of the way, throughout the rest of the roster. And so I think, again, which just sort of kind of speaks to, Utah's mindset. They've got this group together. They've been healthy, and I think it sort of all leads to this team, again, wanting to go out on a win tomorrow.
Well, the most intriguing storylines take place off the field for Utah right now. And I wish that wasn't the case, but it just is. The news that John Henry Daly is jumping into the transfer portal. What do you know about that situation, and what are your expectations how that's going to end up?
Yeah, I know. I think that's an interesting one with John Henry Daly. Obviously, he had a great season this year, was among the best, edge defenders, pass rushers in the country this year, finished with 11.5 sacks and 40-something, nearly 50 tackles for loss. He proved to be a playmaker. And I think for him, what sucks is his injury and what he suffered, in that game against Kansas State. It's a significant injury, and it's one that he's going to have to prove that he's right. And so, for Henry Daly, he's obviously, when you have that sort of production as a pass rusher, that comes with a pretty handsome reward when you're talking about the transfer portal and NIL and what these guys are able to make now. For him, he's going to be looking probably for a pretty handsome payday, right? And for Utah, you've sort of been in this situation before where, you have a great player that suffers an injury in one of the final games of the season. And, as optimistic as you want to be with their recovery and when they can start to play, when you have a significant injury like the one Henry Daly and referring back to Cam Rising, the injury that those guys have had were pretty significant. And so I think, there's a little bit of caution there from Utah's perspective, but, JHD, I think, is a tremendous player and that's sort of where we're at with that situation. And I think he's certainly worthy of an opportunity to go into the transfer portal and look for, that type of payday because, he's just proved to be one of the top pass rushers in the country this season.
All right, Steve, I got to ask you, when you saw Kyle Whittingham wearing a Michigan hat and saying "Go Blue" the other day, how surreal was it?
Oh, it was super surreal. I mean, it was just, I still can't wrap my head around it that Kyle Whittingham is going to be, patrolling the sidelines, at the big house, really.
Yeah.
It's not just another stadium, it's the big house. And that's the type of job that I think Kyle Whittingham, I think he's put himself in this situation. He's proven to be a good coach. I think this is the type of situation where everybody's going to be curious about how he actually does at Michigan, right? What type of success is he going to lead that program to? It's just kind of surreal to think about, but certainly it'll add some additional storylines for Utah fans and people in the state to follow next year, because I think everybody's interested in seeing what that program looks like, what that staff looks like, and what he can do in Ann Arbor, where the expectations are national championships, right? Like that's the goal, that's the task. And how does he actually do? Everybody's said that he's a great coach that's just lacked the resources, and he'll have a chance to prove those people right.
Obviously, Kyle Whittingham going to Ann Arbor creates a situation where it's likely he's taking some coaches and potentially players with him. What are you hearing right now? What are your expectations when it comes to staff members at Utah that could be on their way out, headed to Ann Arbor or elsewhere?
Yeah, I think what's interesting is Jay Hill, is maybe the most likely as of right now. With Utah and Jason Beck, he's been considered the top target for Kyle Whittingham, and to bring him over, because that just that brings so much familiarity. Jim Harding is another guy is considered to be following Kyle Whittingham to Michigan, but I know that Jim has some options on the table that he may not necessarily leave for Michigan. So there's a lot of potential here, right? And I think the big one for Utah is obviously Jason Beck. And just given the success you had this season, the potential to bring back a lot of pieces from the offense this year with Jason Beck at the helm. There's been a big push from Morgan Scalley and Utah to keep Jason Beck in place. That's continued into today, those conversations, from what I've been told and what I've heard. And, we'll continue to kind of follow that and monitor it. If you're Kyle Whittingham, you certainly want to have things kind of crystallized by, the conclusion of their bowl game and have stuff ready to go. And it seems like, they've got a pretty good sense of who those guys could be, but, Utah and BYU, they're making it tough on Kyle Whittingham. From what I've heard, they're making it very difficult to just kind of call it official that Beck and Jay Hill are going to Ann Arbor. I think these programs are putting up a pretty significant fight, and I think that says a lot about the commitment to Utah football and to BYU football, and the sudden resources that these programs have and the passion that these programs have for football. I think it says a lot that they're trying to go toe-to-toe, with one of the top 5 most recognizable programs in the country, in the world, when you're talking about that Michigan Wolverine helmet. And so I think it's fascinating what could actually transpire over the next couple of days. Because, again, like I said, Whittingham probably wants to have a pretty good idea of what his staff is going to look like, so they have something ready to go the day after and start attacking the transfer portal later this week.
Interesting.
Now, Steve, associated with coaching the carousel, the shuffle that we all are kind of monitoring here, is obviously player personnel. And the portal opens up on Friday formally. Do you have an idea, or at least do you have like a short list of like positions you think Utah will be attacking, or is it just really too hard to determine that, considering how much change there could be?
Yeah, I think a lot will be determined by, who actually ends up going in the portal. But, one position that I think, a couple positions that come to mind that were already priorities and only are going to become bigger probably is offensive line. That's going to be a big priority for Utah in the transfer portal. I know that they'd love to go into the tight end market and look to bring in, a Dallin Bentley type of big body guy. And then defensive end, Logan Fano announcing that, he's going to leave with a year of eligibility remaining, and then John Henry Daly obviously announcing his entry into the portal. You already kind of, with his injury, you already kind of marked him off of 2026, which kind of made it a thing. But, with that and Logan, and then those are probably the top three positions right now. But again, a lot hinges on what staff end up following Kyle Whittingham to Ann Arbor, because that can certainly change some things as well. But as of now, those are the top positions that they'll look into the portal to address. And then it all just kind of depends on what ends up being, who ends up staying on staff and who ends up following, and what that could lead to in terms of other players that follow their coaches to Michigan.
It'll be interesting. The portal opens up on Friday, but before that, they've got this bowl game. And one last question for you, Steve, before we cut you loose. I wanted to get your thoughts on Morgan Scalley. We're going to see him in his first game as head coach on Wednesday. I'm curious what you think is going to be the difference in the program with Morgan as opposed to Kyle. Obviously, they do a lot of the similar. They've been tied at the hip for a long time, but now Morgan Scalley gets to put his stamp on this program and do things his way. What can that look like? What do you think? What differences could we see in this program in this transition?
Yeah, I think internally, where we as outsiders may not get a look at it and what it's going to lead to. But I think, the difference really for the program, going from Kyle Whittingham, who obviously is a legend, and he's going to have the power and the resources to do what he needs to and operate how he wants to. And you get to his point in his career, and you kind of become more of a CEO, and you delegate and you allow others to take care of certain responsibilities, and you're kind of almost hands off, and so for Morgan, I think what this will lead to is, with him and where he's at his age, 46 years, and just knowing the type of person that he is and how his work ethic and the personality that he has, I think you're going to see, a head coach that's more energetic, more involved in the day-to-day, the daily type of stuff. Probably going to lead to less delegation. Obviously, he's going to rely on others to do things, but I think his energy is going to be the thing that I think leads to the most obvious to us in terms of the differences that we see, with Scalley, how he'll coach. Lander Barton talked about that he's going to look a little bit more energetic than Kyle Whittingham did patrolling the sidelines. There's going to be a little bit more energy. And so I think that's going to be the biggest difference that we see, is just a more energetic coach, on the sideline. And it'll be interesting to hear his first, game, pregame speech and what that sounds like. Kyle always had certain things that he would always say. But with Morgan, I think there's just a lot of excitement about the energy that he's brought, the organization that he's going to, have and how he'll operate. But I think that's going to be kind of the most interesting dynamics that we follow with how the program changes and evolves under Scalley.
He's Steve Bartle, Utah Utes insider for KSL Sports, KSLSports.com. It's going to be an interesting week up on the hill, both on the field and off the field. Buckle up. Steve Bartle's got you covered. You know where to find the latest on KSLSports.com. Steve, enjoy Vegas. Thanks so much.
Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
Steve Bartle. He's on it.
He is.
He's dialed in. After this game ends on Wednesday, and it's interesting, a lot of interesting stuff there. The push to keep Jason Beck at Utah is interesting. Now, most of you are like laughing. There's no way.
Sure.
How are they going to keep him from going to Michigan? I don't know. This is an interesting test for Utah football.
Correct.
Can they play with the big boys? And when I talk about playing with the big boys, I'm talking about money. We heard about this new deal.
Yeah.
This is the first test of this. How are you going to retain coaches where the big names come calling? Kyle Whittingham knows what he wants. He's got every resource and every dollar he needs at Michigan to come chase these guys that he has great relationships with. At least we assume that much.
Yeah.
Guys he trusts at the very least. He wants them to come to Ann Arbor. How do you say no to an opportunity to be a coordinator at Michigan or an assistant coach at Michigan?
Well, it seems like you're going to obviously have to pony up money, first off.
Clearly.
To keep guys in place. And I think you got to sell guys on the fact, like, no, keep building where you're at. Like, you've established yourself in the case of a Jay Hill and Provo. You've had 3 years of pretty darn good success on defense. And what Jason Beck has showed in just the one season he did at Utah. Well, I remember when he came over from Mexico, they ran the ball like they did at Utah, New Mexico. But the question was, okay, that's the G6 level. Can it come up to the P4 level? Well, yeah, not only did it do that, it was the second best rushing offense in the entire country.
Right.
So it showed that, yeah, it's replicable and it's successful. And I think the continuity factor, you're just trying to sell them like, hey, you got a good thing going here. Let's keep it rolling.
Those coaching decisions could happen in the next 48 hours. The portal opens Friday. Buckle up, Utah fans. Buckle up, college football fans. Yeah. This next week is going to be bananas. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to lock in on the Utah Jazz. Celtics are in town tonight. Jazz are playing good basketball. It's Jazz Daily next on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
What time is it?
Your exclusive home of Utah Jazz basketball is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Marketing trying to pop out. They can't get it to him. Filipowski finds Lowry. Checks the clock. 4. Driving the top to the basket. Victor comes over. Lowry double clutches and finishes over the alien. Jazz by 3. Keyonte on a pick and roll. Drives. Kicks to the corner. It's Price for 3. It's good. And Utah leads by 6 with 4:23 to play. Here's Clayton at the top, guarded by Harper, rookie on rookie. Swings it right side to Marketing. Catch and shoot 3. You bet! Lowry Marketing, the finisher from the high right, and the Jazz are up 9.
You're locked into JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The Utah Jazz back in action tonight. Looking for a third straight win. Man, they're playing good basketball right now. They beat the Pistons at the buzzer, Keyonte George, and then the next night go on the road and beat the red-hot Spurs, ending their 8-game win streak. They beat Wembanyama and the Spurs in San Antonio. The Jazz look too good to keep that lottery pick. I'm sorry. What's going to change? What's going to happen? I don't know. But, Jake, this team's good.
Yeah. You do have a chance to watch them, though. Should we give those away right now?
Ooh. We have tickets?
We do.
To give away? Let's do it. Here we go. It is Jazz Ticket Tuesday. We gave some away earlier in the show, and we've got some left. Caller number 12 at 801-575-ZONE wins a pair of tickets to see the Utah Jazz versus the Dallas Mavericks. That's right. Cooper Flagg and the Dallas Mavericks on Thursday, January 8th at the Delta Center at 7 p.m. As for tonight, the Jazz are hosting Jaylen Brown and the Boston Celtics. As we mentioned earlier, 2 of the top 10 scorers, 3 of the top 20 scorers in the NBA on the court tonight. We were worried about Keyonte George apparently going through some kind of illness, but the injury report is out for tonight, and Keyonte George is in. He is available. You will see Keyonte on the court tonight. Unfortunately, Ace Bailey will not play. That left hip flexor is going to keep him out. Hopefully that doesn't last too much longer because you want him to get out there and continue to develop. But he is out tonight. And Kevin Love is out with rest. Wouldn't we all love to be out with rest?
I'm out. Why are you out? I'm resting. Thank you.
Kevin Love's out with rest and a glass of warm milk.
So, JJ, I haven't had a chance to talk to you about this. I've talked to DJ and PK about it, obviously. But Keyonte George, he's been an absolute revelation this season. He's borderline all-star caliber with the way he's competing and playing. Is it, in some ways, like there are Jazz fans out there, and trust me, I pay attention on social media because I'm terminally online, as I like to say, and they're like...
Sorry to hear that.
I know, but they're lamenting like, well, they're just too good to hold on to that draft pick, as you mentioned. And, well, they need to make moves. And I'm like, okay, but at the same time, Keontae's in his third year. He's taken the leap. And it kind of shows, and it's something that Ben Anderson has pointed out, that a lot of guys, Dave Locke says this all the time, it takes guys 2 or 3 years, especially as young as they come into the NBA and they come in at 18, 19 years old. And when they turn 20, 21, the kind of light bulb for those that are going to make it, turns on. And that's what it appears that Keyonte George has done here. He's taken that leap. And in some ways, like, okay, yeah, you're at risk of losing this pick, but shouldn't we celebrate the fact that they have found what appears to be a building block along the way?
Isn't this what you're trying to do? Isn't this the whole dang point?
Sure.
I
think so.
Well, maybe fans are just like wondering, well, it needs to be a number one overall pick, right? Because only number one overall picks lead you to championships. Well, if you haven't been paying attention to the league, start looking through the champions of recent years.
Yeah.
How many number one overall picks have led their team that drafted them number one overall to an NBA championship? You got to go all the way back to, I think, Kyrie Irving with the Cavaliers, and he wasn't the number one player on that team.
I was going to say, there's a...
Now, LeBron was drafted by the Cavs, but it was the second time around.
Correct, yeah. He had left and won multiple titles and then came back.
So you start looking around the league, and you realize, wait a minute, you don't have to have the number one overall pick. You've got to get all-stars.
Correct.
You need stars.
Yeah.
Now, the odds are in your favor to get them with the number one overall pick.
Yeah.
The odds they decrease more and more as you go down farther in the draft, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wasn't even a top 10 pick. He was an 11th pick, right?
Yeah.
Where was Nikola Jokic taken? During a Taco Bell commercial in the second round. We all know that story.
By the way, the quesarito is back, and people have been making that joke that because it's a quesarito ad that showed when he was picked in the NBA draft in that second round, famously.
Yeah, so there's just some examples.
Yeah.
Now, the Spurs get Wembanyama, generational talent. They're probably going to be back in the mix and already based on what they're doing this year. But and if Cooper Flag looks legit as well.
And they've got Stephen Castle. And PK made a point this morning that we're hearing all this stuff about the Jazz kind of like bearing the brunt of what they want to change the lottery rules and like hurt for tanking and all this stuff. But PK's point is, okay, so you're going to let the Spurs, I think it was the 1, 4, and 2 picks they've gotten in recent years.
Right.
So they get to cash in, and then, sorry, Utah.
Yeah.
But screw you guys.
Well, now that it's Utah's turn to win the lottery, you got to change the rules. So, can't have that.
So that part's kind of the irksome part of this, I think, is you look at it and say, okay, they found a building block in Keyonte. Lauri Markkanen, we already talked about, he's a top 10 scorer in the NBA right now, so they have 2 of the top 20 scorers. They look like they may be too good to hold on to that pick. But I also saw Zach Lowe, obviously, doing great things covering the NBA. I saw an interaction he's having with a Jazz fan earlier today, actually, as getting ready for the show, and he's talking about the fact that he believes that they could still maintain the core, speaking of Keyonte and Lowry, but make some moves with some of the other vets. And he talked about Svi Mikhailuk. He talked about the Kevin Loves, and essentially tell those guys, okay, you had your chance to play, but you're now bench guys, and we're going to play the young bucks. And that would, I guess, from his vantage point, lead the Jazz down a path where they are competing but still losing at a level that would keep that pick intact with Utah.
So what you'd have to do in order to do that, in my opinion, is find new homes for Yusuf Nurkic, who's been very good this year.
But he's your only true center right now.
Right. Which, if you're playing without a center, increases your chances of losing ball games.
And they also just saw because the guy I thought they might bring up to be the backup center was Mo Bamba.
Yeah.
Where's he off to?
He's been picked up by another team with the Raptors.
Toronto.
Is it Toronto?
1-year deal.
So he's not available.
Correct.
So, you have depth issues there that you would create. Svi Mikhailuk's another veteran. How many teams out there that kind of reminds me of Fontecchio, a situation like that where you have somebody who comes into that came in and developed and took advantage of their opportunity, and then you were able to ship them off at a trade deadline in order to create the situation you're looking for.
Yes.
Here's the problem: is you're running out of veterans to do that with this group.
Yeah.
They've done it the last 2 years. You remember the Mike Conley trades.
Yeah, they were too good, and they realized it.
And then they moved them. Same thing happened last year. They started moving some guys. Not that they were good last year, but they made moves during the deadlines to move veteran players. And then obviously during the offseason, they got rid of a lot of the veterans. There's only so many vets you have left to get rid of. Here's the problem. The Jazz young players are getting better.
Yes.
And it's not just Keyonte. Look, Lauri Markkanen's an all-star player. The Jazz know what they have with him. And I do believe they should hold on to him and make him the centerpiece of their build moving forward. But Keyonte George has taken a massive leap, playing near at an all-star level. But this is what you want. You got Keyonte George in the Rudy Gobert trade. You made that Rudy Gobert trade with the belief that that was going to help you in your rebuild. And what did you find so far in that Rudy Gobert trade with some of those picks? The two that have hit the most is obviously Walker Kessler, which was taken in that same year. But Keyonte George was one of those Minnesota picks.
At the 16th.
16th overall. And right now, you landed a player at number 16 that's playing at a all-star level.
Yeah.
You just hit a home run, Jazz fans.
Yeah, like
that's massive.
You should be celebrating the fact that Danny Ainge found a all-star caliber guy in the middle part of the first round.
They nailed it. Now you maybe the jury's still out, obviously, on Taylor Hendricks in that same draft, right? But it doesn't matter if you had two chances and you hit on one of them. Bullseye, you win.
Yeah, and I can remember the belly. I can remember that's the Cam Whitmore year. Remember, so many Jazz fans were so irate that they passed on Whitmore. Well, Whitmore has been essentially nothing.
Yeah, I don't think he's even injured right now. I don't even think he's playing in the league right now.
And they pointed out, I think a guy named Kobe Buffkin was the pick directly in front of Keyonte George. He's in the G League right now.
Yeah.
So the fact that you yanked a all-star caliber guard out of the middle part of the first round in a draft that a lot of people panned, and it does lead you to concerns that as stacked as this current crop of NBA draft talent appears in this upcoming NBA draft, I think there's a line to be walked here, JJ, that you can celebrate the fact that they found, and not found, but they've seen a guy like Keyonte George emerge as a building block player. But at the same time, I think there's still a path to where you can still retain that pick and potentially add another piece in this, what appears to be one of those bumper crop type drafts.
I still think there's a possibility the Jazz make a couple moves or something happens where they're able to. I feel like they're going to try to find a way to get in that draft. There's too many good players in this draft to not miss out on it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, at the end, whether you're just miss the playoffs or you tank at the end, you're not guaranteed anything by having the worst record, as we learned that tough lesson last year. The Dallas Mavericks winning the whole dang lottery. And, of course, who else moved up? Was it the Rockets who moved up? The Spurs moved up.
Spurs moved up, yes.
The Spurs. Yeah. So you don't have to be the worst team in the league. We've seen how this works. Just let it play out however it's going to play out. But you mentioned that draft, just to give you an idea. You never know what you're going to hit. You never know what you're going to hit. Do you know how many? So the top three scorers out of that 2023 draft so far.
Okay.
You're talking about value. Yeah. Victor Wembanyama is number one.
Okay.
Right?
Well, okay. Generational talent. Got
it. Only about 268 points behind is Keyonte George. Keyonte George is the second leading scorer of the 2023 NBA draft so far. Wow. Better than Brandon Miller, Amen Thompson, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Brandon Pajemski. Those are your top six scorers in that draft. Scoot Henderson is 8th. Anthony Black is 9th. Asar Thompson, 11th. Bryce Sensabaugh is 14th. He's ahead of Cam Whitmore. You can argue Bryce Sensabaugh was a better pick, a better value than Cam Whitmore. So to your point, let these things play out. The Jazz nailed the 2023 draft.
Yeah.
I just mentioned Sensabaugh in there as well, who's going to be definitely your sixth man coming out of that draft. So the Jazz are starting to hit on these picks. If it costs you that lottery pick, I guess that's just the price you have to pay. But that's the whole dang point. You're trying to get better. You're trying to find all-star caliber players. And the Jazz have found one with Keyonte George. Jazz Celtics tonight right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We've got to take a break. When we come back, we'll get you ready for that game, leading you up to the tip-off, the pregame show. It's all coming up next on JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Wrapping up the hour with our picks for the best and worst moments on today's show. As JJ and Alex want to hear your best and worst of the day.
Welcome back, JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jeremiah Jensen, Jake Hatch sitting in for Alex Kirry today. Jake, thanks for staying up with us.
Thanks for having me.
And pinch hitting today. It's been fun. Have a great show. We've had some great topics. Talked about Utah football, BYU football.
There's a lot going on, man.
Oh, it's a great time of year. We're almost, unfortunately, sadly, almost about to lose football. We're gonna hold on to that as long as we can. The NFL's just gonna get really good here, so that's awesome. College football is almost behind us, but we're going to cling on to that as well. And we're clinging on to the Jazz right now because this team is fun to watch. They're playing the Celtics tonight. That's coming up next right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott and the coach will be standing by with the pregame show before tip-off at 7 o'clock between these two teams, the Jazz and the Celtics. Jaylen Brown has been interesting because I think a lot of people looked around the league and they thought, well, the Celtics are going to do what the Pacers did this year. Is you lose your star player, you're going to drop off. Jaylen Brown is proving that he's a superstar in this league, a top 5 scorer in this league, and that he can handle that kind of weight.
Well, and that's the thing. I've always thought Jaylen Brown was capable of doing what he's doing. He just happened to be playing alongside Jason Tatum, who's an all-world talent in his own right. And that's what's powered the Celtics to where they've been for the last little while, is that they have 2 pillars to build around. And I think they're kind of the archetype of what a lot of NBA teams want to have. They want to have 2 established long wing players you can run everything through. Not just one guy, essentially, the teams can key on. You have both of them. They can play off one another. Now, other teams have built other ways. We all know the Denver Nuggets with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. It's a big man guard combo. But there are different ways to build teams, and that's credit to Boston because you're right. They easily could have done what Indiana's doing and crumbled.
Although Indiana might be grateful for that off year because they might land A.J. Johnson, and then we're having a completely different conversation. And people in Boston are like, "Why did you tank for A.J.?"
You also have
who's a Massachusetts guy.
You also have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are looking at potentially not only 1 but 2 lottery picks.
Pretty crazy
based on trades they have made in the past.
I tell you, they got some kind of cheat code over there. They've done a tremendous job. You got to give them credit.
Man.
Sam Presti, I guess.
Yeah,
it's worked out pretty well for him. Not that it's been perfect there, but my goodness. It's tough to see anybody else in the NBA winning a title anytime soon with the juggernaut they built. Of course, Wembanyama and the Spurs are definitely on the acceleration there. All right, this is brought to you by Jug Smith Dealerships, Dodge, Ram, Chevrolet, Subaru, Kia, and Linden, and now Mitsubishi in American Fork. Jazz and Celtics next right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The pregame show starts in 10 seconds. Jake Hatch, Tim Lacombe, standing by over at the Delta Center to get you ready for tip-off between the Jazz and Celtics coming up at 7 o'clock. Thanks for joining us. Happy New Year, everybody.